Alright, I'm out in the garage tonight, messing with the Camaro. Got a few things to do on it. Fired it up last night for the first time in probably about a month or two. Probably closer to 2 months. Picked up some fresh E85 today. I always keep the battery on a battery tender. But I noticed the end of last year, I was running into an issue with what seemed like a voltage drop issue, but I also knew the battery I'm running is pretty weak, and they're both a couple years old. So I'll show you what I got going on. Well, let me grab the flashlight. It's under here. So if you look, I'm running the 9-pound lightweight battery there, and then that's actually a motorcycle battery next to it. So I'm running dual batteries, but they're both lightweight batteries. They're only like, well, the 9-pound battery is supposed to be like 350 cranking amps, but it really only measures like 200, and then the other one's like 175 cranking amps, right in there. So combined you get like 375 cranking amps, which isn't a whole lot, but it's always worked. But I knew it was always right on the edge of not being enough. So when I started to have issues, I figured one of those two batteries was going bad. I actually load tested those batteries tonight, and they load test the exact same what they always have. So basically I get like 175 on the one and 150 on the other, combined right in that 325 range. That's really close to what they always come out to as far as cold cranking amps. And I'm just using this little battery tester to check. Well, I went to the front of the car, and you're always going to have some voltage drop or amperage drop when you have the batteries mounted in the back and you test it all the way up here in the front. But when I would test it up here at the front, I was only getting like 90 to 100 cranking amps up here. And I keep saying cranking amps or cold cranking amps, but there is a difference, but for what I'm referencing, it's pretty much the same. It's actually cranking amps is what I'm measuring with this. Cold cranking amps is at 0 or 32, depending on what battery manufacturer we're talking about. But basically with the tester, I was only getting like 89 to 100 cranking amps up here. Well, I just kind of started working my way backwards and testing in different spots where I could access. So I got back here to my shutoff switch. And what I did is I clipped on, you have two studs on the back of the switch. I clipped on the stud over here. That's the main power from the battery. Basically, I was getting like 300 cranking amps to this side of it. With the switch on going to the other stud, I was only getting like 190 cranking amps. So I was dropping 110 cranking amps across this switch. Well, that's obviously an issue that you might get a little bit of a drop, but you shouldn't have 110 cranking amps dropped, especially on a system like this where every amp really counts when I'm running such limited cranking amps to begin with. So if you look, what I did for testing purposes only, stick you guys underneath there. If you see, I just bolted both of them together on the one side of the stud to eliminate the switch. Now doing that, like I said, I eliminate the switch so it no longer works, but now I can go back up front and see what my cranking amps are. Well, up front it went up 90 to 100 cranking amps. I have like 220 up there, so I guess more like 110. So that's quite a big improvement. Long story short there, obviously I have a bad switch. I suspected it once before, but I actually jumpered it, and it didn't make any difference. Well, the method of me jumpering it was just a quick test, and I don't think I had a good connection when I jumpered it. So, like I said, long story short, the switch is bad. I'll show you guys real quick. What would happen is basically I'd get in the car to start it, and the starter would just click and it wouldn't crank over. So doing nothing more than jumpering my switch, turn the key on here, everything loads up. Here it's cranking over just fine now. So just a good reminder for you guys, especially with these, race cars, street cars, anything with the battery shut-off switches, to make sure you check them. Make sure you're not losing a bunch of amperage across those switches. This switch, it is a JIG switch. It's at least 10 years old, and this thing has seen quite a bit of water, some snow. I actually drove this in the snow once to pick up some car parts, but definitely shouldn't have, but I needed a vehicle to get there. So not blaming the switch at all. This thing is just torn, wear and tear. I mean, it's 10 years old and been flipped back and forth God knows how many times. So yeah, basically check your switches when you're having starting problems with these. And quick test, I guess, if you don't have the access to the tools, is to just go ahead and jumper them. Just bolt those two connectors together, tape them up, or just do what I did, put both leads on one stud, see if that doesn't take care of your cranking issue. I think this is going to be a little bit of a common thing. Well, let me rephrase that. I know this is a little bit of a common thing because Circle Track Buddy a couple weeks ago was having a problem with his engine cranking over slow. He actually put a second battery in, still cranking over slow. Long story short, it was the switch on his as well. And same deal, it's a really old switch. But yeah, just something to keep in mind. Hopefully this helps some people. I'm going to get some connections tightened up, get this thing back together. I've got a chassis certification this Saturday. It's actually a recert, it's already certified. But I figure I'll get that taken care of before it expires. And I'm most likely going to drive the car there. It's not too far away. So I just wanted to make sure I got it in good running order. Fired up just fine the other day. It didn't fire up there because I don't have the fuel pump on. Yeah, I think that'll do it, and hopefully this helps you guys if you're having cranking issues with anything with a battery cutoff switch. Thanks. Don't forget to like and subscribe.